GM, welcome to what's going to be another fantastic episode of DevNTell. So if you didn't know, DevNTell is a 30-minute podcast held every week, allowing founders, hackers, and anyone in between an opportunity to come on the show and showcase what they built. And today, I'm ecstatic to welcome MacBrennan Peet, who is the founder of Project Zero. So if you didn't know, Project Zero is your DeFi-Native Prime Broker, allowing you to borrow against your entire portfolio, and regardless of what venues you use. So if you stick around for today's episode, you'll get to meet MacBrennan, learn about Project Zero, and how you can get started with the platform today. All right, let's get into it. GM, welcome to the show, MacBrennan. I'm excited to have you on, man.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And I guess before we get into everything Project Zero, would you just like to give a brief introduction about yourself?
Yep. My name is MacBrennan Peet. I've been in tech and finance my whole professional career, which is basically like close to 10 years now. I enjoy, a bunch about, I've worked in health tech and in HFT, in, a bunch of DeFi stuff. And I've in traditional finance, and so I think like the culmination of like tech and finance leads you to crypto, and so that's why I think I've ended up here.
Yeah, and you have quite the tenure as a founder as well. I saw the list on your personal website. That's that's quite the list of things you've been into the last decade or so. Uh, just curious, like how did you get into technology? Like what kind of gravitated you to go there?
I think I was just very curious as a kid. It was just messing around on the internet. Like I remember remember watching Bitcoin when it was like 200 bucks, or it just hit $200. I thought that was crazy. I would get a daily newsletter on Bitcoin and just like what's going on. I'd be on a bunch of hacking forums. Like that was that type of kid. And then I tried I started trading stocks like before it was even legal, and just that was what I deeply enjoyed doing. So just following curiosity. Yeah.
This is the way. This is the way. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, curiosity leads you to most of the time extraordinary places, especially in tech. And I mean, obviously, like we mentioned before, you have quite the list of companies that you started or helped co-found, got acquired, got acquired in some cases. Just curious for the founders and aspiring founders watching today, like what are some key takeaways and lessons you kind of like learned over the years and you like to share with the audience?
Yeah. I would say also be curious and follow your curiosities, because if you're working on something for long hours that you're not intellectually curious about, it's going to be a massive uphill battle. So it is fun when you actually enjoy learning about the things that you're hacking on. And so I would certainly recommend that. Um, and then try to find like the most impressive people that you can find in your specific domains. And especially if you're early in your career, I would advocate like traveling to be in proximity to that. There's always hotspots for certain things. So proximity is good because you get to go to in-person stuff, and I remember I did that when I was building like one of my first venture scale company. It was like during COVID, and I like flew out to LA on a whim. And at that time, a bunch of people were in LA that were very relevant, and that was a big turning point for me. So I would also advocate that to people, like get out, go meet people, and make sure you really enjoy what you're doing, and you don't just like see a gap in the market that you kind of like don't enjoy at all. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to compete with someone who's having fun at what they
Yeah.
do. So so yeah, definitely you want to go mingle and then find the right people to ensure like you have the proper springboard for success. 100%. And yeah, I guess during your time as a founder and you're going through all these motions, eventually uh, you end up co-founding Project Zero. You want to give us an elevator pitch of what Project Zero is?
Yep. So DeFi has hit this inflection point where there's a bunch of venues now that aren't going anywhere and sort of are very established in the functionality they provide. There's lend borrow venues that are pretty solidified. There's perps venues that are pretty solidified, interest rate derivatives, spot trading, etc. Um, and for anyone who uses DeFi, it's extremely multifaceted. Like when you go and you use these products, you're using 2, 3, 5, 10. You're never just using one because like one can't fulfill everything that you need. And that's just finance. Like if you're a finance power user, you're also just like not using one single primitive. You're using a host of things a lot of the times. And so the problem arises for any like real DeFi user is that the minute you have your capital on more than one venue, so maybe you have it now on a borrow lend in a perp venue, you run into capital fragmentation. So now, like, let's say you have $100 portfolio, you have $50 on the lend venue, $50 on the perp venue. Now, if you need to borrow, you got to go like choose which venue you want it from. You got to make sure that venue has borrowing ability in the first place, especially against like the collateral that you're using. And then in the example I just provided, maybe you can borrow like $35 from one venue, but you have like $100 portfolio. So you just like borrowed essentially like 35% of your collateral. Like that was really inefficient. So what Project Zero does is it looks at your balance across the venues you're using and gives you unified borrow based on that. And in doing so, it can kind of give you much better, a few things. It can give you better risk, better rates. It can give you better risk in the sense that, let's say you're long on venue A and short on venue B, and it's the same asset, for example, and you're actually like delta neutral. Venue A will view your position as riskier. Venue B will view your position as riskier. And neither venue knows you have like an offsetting position on the other venue. And so they're both going to restrict your borrowing ability. But when you view this position together, it's actually, if the market goes up or down, your net position kind of stays the same. So you can actually borrow more, for example, through Project Zero. So that's like a case where you get both better risk and better rates. You can get better UX because now you have like essentially one single place. You can plug it on the app layer, plug it on like the development layer to manage your portfolio. And you get better capital efficiency. So now, like, instead of getting like 35% on your collateral, you can get like 80%, 90%. So this solves like a bunch of different things for people who are using more than one venue, which happens to be like the majority of DeFi users.
Interesting. And yeah, we'll double click into the details a little bit as we go. But just curious, like, did you run into a, a a problem like in your exploratory days of DeFi where you're like, oh damn, I actually wanted to like invest in something, but I had collateral locked in on like this venue, and then I couldn't actually use it where I wanted to. Yeah, what was the triggering moment? You're like, well, I need to sell this.
Yeah. A while ago, I worked on like a perp, like funding radar product, which was multi-venue. And so you run into capital problems there where uh, we were just funding rates or funding, rates. So like, if you're long here and short here, maybe the funding rates on the product are in a way where you can be like delta neutral, but still be capturing, really incredible yield on the products, but you run into capital fragmentation when you do that. So that was multi-venue, and there was like these huge divergences across venues in terms of funding rates. So that was one example. I've now become like more, I like, I mean, core to the product and sort of the progression of the product. I'm a big fan of interest rates and interest rate derivatives. And so there's also this capital fragmentation problem there, because perps have gotten much more sophisticated, algorithmic. Like there's still a lot of like point and click stuff you can do with funding rates, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, like for anyone who is performing any sort of multi-venue rate trade, carry trade, or basis trade, you have capital fragmentation problems. And so this would essentially enable you to do that multi-venue and then also like lever up on that position and recapture that delta, over and over again. In doing so, like bringing better efficiency to the markets.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, this sounds like very interesting, and I'm curious to learn how it kind of works under the hood. If you can share any details, is it
Yeah.
um, mostly just like all smart contract based, or like how does it work?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the other thing that's super cool is this is permissionless open source program. So we allow you to deposit into any like third party program, for example, and we do this in a very lightweight approach where we just essentially add self-custodial account in between you and, like, let's say you're depositing into Camino, for example. Camino has like a 10% yield that you want to capture, and then on P0, for example, you can borrow an asset with like maybe it's the same asset or maybe has a similar market beta for 5%. So now you have a 5% delta that you could theoretically like lever up, right? So, I deposit into Camino through the self-custodial account. The reason we insert a self-custodial account in between, and that's self-custodial to you, by the way, but the reason we insert this account in between is so that if your position becomes unhealthy, we need our liquidators to be able to liquidate your position. With deposit into Camino, I'm earning 10% yield. Borrow on P0 against that Camino position at a 5% yield. So in order to do that, P0 has its own credit pool. And this credit pool has, like 250 million supplied to it, and about 100 million borrowed. And so the borrowed now comes out of this P0 credit pool. Very similar to like how like Aave mechanics work. So this borrow comes out, and then if that ends up pushing up the rate, lenders can just lend directly into the P0 pool. And then it's just all, along an interest rate curve based on utilization. And so you can borrow against that Camino deposit, redeposit into Camino, borrow, and just loop that up. So that's how it kind of works in a nutshell. Right now, we just have spot products. We'll add very soon like perp products and interest rate products, because that enables like a better ability to like capture this basis. So for example, like let's say you short a perp on drift, sold perp on drift, and now lend sold spot on Camino. So now potentially you're capturing like the funding rate in, up markets on drift, as well as the lend rate on Camino, and then you can loop that combined position. Stuff like that. I think is super cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's DeFi gymnastics, and it sounds very innovative, and yeah, it definitely is solving a real problem. I mean, DeFi is great, but then once you really start getting like past just that first, like I created a wallet and then I I push some money somewhere to earn some yield, you're like, oh, this is actually this is actually a little bit more complicated and more
Yeah.
than I bargained for, right?
Yeah.
So it's great to hear you guys are focusing on really pushing the boundaries here and making DeFi better for all. And you mentioned it, I guess, slightly when using the word program. I think Project Zero is exclusively on Solana, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
As of right now. Yep. Yeah.
Now, and just curious, like, what was your driving decision of starting on Solana? Like, what drove
Yeah.
you to start things there?
Yeah. So what Project Zero is in a nutshell is essentially like this programmatic Prime Broker. And so the hardest thing about building a prime broker is building the risk engine. And one of the ways you can de-risk the risk engine, or just make the risk engine easier to model and execute on, is building it on a foundation that's fast, predictable, with like low fees, essentially. So if you're collateralizing like fast moving products, like maybe you're collateralizing derivatives, you need to be able to do complex math very fast. You need to be able to liquidate very fast. You need to be able to know that, your fee is going to be pretty stable and set, so that, because if that fee jumps, that like eats into the profitability, which eats into like the capital efficiency of like, and liquidating that position becomes harder. And so a really good way to de-risk a lot of this is to build it on a fast, cheap, efficient engine. And Solana is like really great at that. So our risk and liquidity engine is native to Solana. Now, like we can collateralize anything. So I would love to collateralize like Aave positions. I'd love to collateralize Hyperliquid positions. And that's completely possible. And it's actually like not a big jump from what we're doing now. But even when that happens, for the time being, like our risk and liquidity engine is going to stay on Solana. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, Solana is certainly driving the DeFi action, at least like this past year from what I
Yeah.
noticed.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's only going to get better, and more folks are going to start getting or diving into that side of the world, exploring exploring kind of beyond the EVM ecosystem.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess in that same vein, are there any chains or anything you can kind of give some alpha on that might be supported by Project Zero in 2026 or beyond?
Yeah. No, I would love to. There's a few things that I'm like interested in. Aave and Hyperliquid are like top two, essentially. So right now, there's a ton of deposits in Aave earning like safe, awesome yield, and Aave is a great product. But if a trading opportunity comes up on Solana and they want to trade something, right now what they would have to do is like withdraw their position or borrow like against their position and bridge it over and then like trade it, which is just a total nightmare. And so most people don't, right? Like it's just like, all right, I guess I'm missing this. Or they'll break up their portfolio, right? They'll be like, okay, I'll keep, $100 in Aave and then I'll move $100 over to Solana. That I don't want to, that won't be earning yield. And that's also like a terrible trade-off. So what we would love to do is integrate Aave so that you could have, if you just want to be in Aave and then strategically have capital for trading opportunities on Solana, you can have 100% of your deposits in Aave, and then new token comes up on Solana, and in one click you could just borrow against that on Solana. So there's no bridging involved. It's just one click. You got capital on Solana. You're ready to go after something, because like Solana is also just where a lot of like trading opportunities originate. Even if there's a ton of passive capital on Aave and EVM, right? So this solves that. And then when you're done, you can just repay your borrow and you're done. Again, there's like no bridging. It's 2 clicks essentially. So yeah, I would love to have that in a good spot in next year. Same goes for Hyperliquid. Now Hyperliquid's different because what the things that enable this cross-chain stuff to happen is like a cross-chain messaging protocol. So it would involve like bridging, like us working with bridges behind the scenes. This could be completely abstracted away from the user, but I still need to, from our program needs to be able to effectively collateralize your position permissionlessly on Aave. And so it needs to constantly understand the value of that position, if that position should be liquidated, etc. So yeah, I bring that up because last I looked with Hyperliquid, it's not super mature with like bridging between Solana and Hyperliquid. Now, bridging between Solana and mainnet EVM, there's lots of options, and we would build redundancy on top of that with probably our own systems. But that would just be the missing step, and then everything else would be pretty easy. The other thing we'd want to have is native liquidators to the chain that we're adding. So yeah, if like we're adding Aave, for example, and you have $100 on Aave and you borrow $90 against that on P0, and then your collateral on Aave goes down, and now you're approaching like $90 and you need to be liquidated. We'd want to have liquidators like sitting ready to go on EVM to take over that position. And liquidating on P0 is permissionless, it's open to anyone, so anyone can do this as well, any profit motivated actor. But we also like just to make sure we have our own internal liquidators for redundancy measure. So those would be the two things that would be different if we were adding Aave, which is really not, that difficult. Yeah.
Promising. And you mentioned that the project is open source, or maybe some parts of it are open source. Are there
Yeah.
any opportunities for developers watching today to contribute? Maybe they're like, oh, I want
Yeah.
Hyperliquid. I want to just go build it for you.
Yeah. No, I would love that. We actually just hired a big contributor to P0. So yeah, everything's open source. Even like our liquidators are open source. We're in the process of some like just moving some code around essentially, and some of the newer code it's not as easy to find right now, but I'm happy to point people to where our code is. Like we'll have a up and functioning P0 GitHub relatively soon. Right now, a lot of the code work is done under the Margin Labs GitHub. But yeah, everything's open source, and I'd love to work with more contributors. Yeah, we just hired one of our biggest contributors.
Awesome. Awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah. I mean, you never know if you keep contributing to one of your favorite projects, like, that company is watching, right? So
Yeah,
if you end up doing a great job, it's very likely you'll get hired. So,
yeah,
and it sounds like that's what happened here.
yeah.
Uh, and yeah, sticking on the developer theme, are there any SDKs or APIs either available today or in the plans for people to be able to programmatically
Yeah.
interact with P0?
Yeah, we have SDK and an API, and we've put a lot of like resources now into refining our API. We just have more and more asks increasingly for um, stuff on the API side. So we both, and more tooling is coming on the API side, specifically like more tooling around like a bunch of important data stuff involving the program. But yeah, we have both. Yeah.
Excellent. Uh, is there a public documentation around it, or
There is. We're also like right now improving our docs like suck right now, so we're gonna get some better docs really soon. We've been referring people to like an MD file for a lot of recent stuff, so we'll fix that. But yeah, if there's anyone like even trying to get in touch on or just missing it, like we have it in certain spots, but if it's hard to find, I'm happy to point you in the right directions, and we will also just make it clearer on our side so that people don't need to jump through any hoops. Yeah.
beauty, beauty, beauty? Great to hear. And yeah, just curious. I'm sure this type of thing would be ripe for like an AI agent, or somebody somewhere must be thinking, oh, like, is there an MCP server somewhere I can hit P0 with to get like an autonomous agent going? It's like, have you kind of seen that hype come into the P0 space, or you've been thinking about AI agents at all interacting with the platform?
Yeah, I actually think about um, how an AI would interface with P0 quite a lot. I haven't seen a lot of that happen from the outside yet, but there's a lot of things that I've like some ideas on. One of the areas I think is a good example of this where AI would be cool is we just launched a new like strategies page. So one of the cool things is P0 surfaces interest rate trades, carry trades, not yet basis trades because we don't have derivative venues integrated yet, but soon basis trades that literally are not possible anywhere else because you can collateralize one venue and borrow against that collateral on another venue, which to this point has not been possible in DeFi. So this opens up like really fascinating trade opportunities. And we turn this into a strategies page on P0, where we surface this. And then, if you use leverage, these yields widen. And I think there would be some cool AI tooling here where, you come to the strategies page and you have certain opinions or preferences on the market itself, and that can be used as like a filter for how you view strategies. Like maybe you think Bitcoin is going to go straight up for like the next month or something. You can find strategies that bake in that preference, and instead of showing you like, oh, there's a 30% yield carry trade here you can make with like 5x leverage. Like that, maybe that yield is far greater if you're also like, if you think like Bitcoin price is going to appreciate dramatically. So that would be pretty cool. But yeah, that's like V1 of how I think like AI could be used to improve essentially the user experience and people like opinionated people coming to use P0.
Cool. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that kind of comes to fruition over the next little bit. I mean, a lot of people, when you think of like AI and crypto kind of working together, it's like, oh, okay, there's some bot that makes a trade for me, and that's
Yeah.
that's basically the first thing people think about. But I think
Yeah.
there's kind of more to that, and maybe like that initial idea of like a crypto bot like trading for me, maybe that doesn't work out, right? Because like you're putting your wealth in the hands of a bot who might not be aligned with the same kind of goals and
Yeah.
opinions that you might have. So it could
Yeah.
be
I
a
mean,
recipe for
trading
disaster.
is
Yeah,
extremely hard, right? So
yeah,
you're now just you're giving like the AI like the hardest possible thing to do as like its first objective, which is pretty probably misguided. In fact, like it'll probably be hard for AIs to find alpha for a very long time, because even as like AIs get to the point where they could find alpha that humans are capturing right now, they all would theoretically like find this around the same, and then they'd be competing with each other. And so I think if you're using AI with like finance, you should try to just use it as a customization tool to like because you're going to have opinions and preferences that are just different from other people. Like maybe you're more bullish on Sol than other people, and so you should use that likely these sort of like more custom preferences as your inputs, and then use DeFi with that added filter. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. This can be its whole podcast in itself, really. But like,
Yeah.
trading is all psychology, and it's like everyone is kind of betting against what everybody else is kind of going to do. So it's another rabbit hole in itself. But as we're coming to time here, in terms of Project Zero and how people can keep up to date with all that's going on there, what's the best way for people to do that?
Yeah, we're pretty active on Twitter. So it's just Project Zero, the number zero, not ZERO, zero, is like our handle. I also just mainly tweet about Project Zero. So my handle is MacBrennan, my first name _CC. Those are two good spots. We have a blog which updates along like bigger announcements. So that's blog.zero.xyz. Our app and website is just zero, the number zero, .xyz. Again, not ZERO, just single number. Yeah, those are good spots. Yeah.
Awesome. And we will link all of that for everybody watching and listening today. And with that, MacBrennan, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come chat with us today. It was really cool to learn about Project Zero, and yeah, I'm keen to see it continue to evolve here over the next year to come.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate you having me on.
my pleasure, my pleasure. Anytime. And with that, I just want to wish everybody a very happy Friday, happy weekend wherever you may be, and we will catch you here next week for another episode of DevNTell. Till then, have a good one, folks. Cheers.